Hello, Peter. Today as well. Thank you for coming this place. It's my pleasure to share this time with you.
My pleasure.
Okay, so thank you. I'd like to move on. The first question is about trauma. I think there are different ways to resolve trauma, but is it possible to resolve them to some extent on one's own through self-mastery? Also, is it impossible to resolve something that is not allowed by higher self?
The way I'll angle this is that trauma can be resolved through applying self-mastery depending on the technique. It's just discipline and dedication, which is where the self-mastery comes in. There's many techniques that can be used for releasing trauma, working with trauma, regulating trauma. So, yeah, self-mastery can be used, and it's just applying mastery to the technique. When it comes to the higher self, there is, we could say, rules and regulations or mandates that we may put upon ourselves. But I would ask one to get out of a box on this, because we can put ourselves in a box in a situation, and there is always an out, meaning people talk about soul contracts, missions, journeys, whether it's coming at things from a starseed point of view, as a wanderer or a volunteer. There's many ways that those words are applied to what I'm talking about and include what I'm talking about. So you can talk to the higher self, you can commune with the higher self, which is a cell of the one consciousness that encompasses all consciousness, God, source, creator. And you can rewrite contracts, you can rectify situations, redo situations. So we can think that we can't get out of a situation because our higher self has put us in that situation. But that's where you need to be very careful, because sometimes we put ourselves, like I said, in a box with the situation, or somebody else might say that I'm getting that your higher self said this needs to happen. And as I've mentioned before, somebody else's free will can cross upon our free will, which some might think, oh, the higher self put me in this situation, which isn't always the case. So if anything, talk to the higher self, commune with the divine, and from that place, see what the situation actually is. So never say never. I'll leave it at that, Mika.
Thank you. Next, about self-mastery and HeartMath. I knew about HeartMath Institute because you mentioned it in your book on self-mastery. The HeartMath Institute defines resilience as the ability to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, adversity, trauma, and difficulty, and also is telling the importance of personal balance, creativity, intuitive insight, and the ability to manage one's emotions, etc. It was written mission of HeartMath Institute is that harmonizing physical, spiritual, mental, emotional systems a good balance with the intuitive guidance of heart, and to choosing the path of love, etc. I feel this very interesting, as it has a lot in common with self-mastery. Is there anything you can tell us about this?
Well, it's applying what HeartMath is saying with self-mastery. So I can't speak for the HeartMath Institute. I'm not endorsed or paid by them or anything like that, but I think it's something that's very valuable for people to look at, because the same principles with discipline, dedication for working with the HeartMath techniques are very much applicable through self-mastery. It's hand in hand. HeartMath is very interesting because from what I know, there are some people teaching it to first responders like police, ambulance, and what have you that experience traumatic events. And even in countries where there's refugee situations or war-torn areas, they're using HeartMath. And we could say that, and then again, I'm not speaking for them, it's a technique to regulate your own emotions, which is self-mastery. It's regulating yourself, being in charge of your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings. And it's through a technique of simply connecting with the heart. Visualize or set the intention of breathing in and out of the heart, or feeling the breath going in past the heart, out past the heart. Doing that for a minute or so, and then thinking of an experience that's got gratitude, appreciation, or even of a loved one. And it's through that and a few added on techniques with different styles that they do that you can release or work with trauma response in a way that you can overcome and be in a higher vibratorial state to where you may not forget the experience, but you can regulate yourself and have a different response to it, because we store trauma in our body. And if getting triggered, that's where we go into a lower vibratorial state. We go out of coherence, and it works with coherence between the brain and the heart. So we could say that you could add it as a aspect of self-mastery, though self-mastery, as we've spoken about, goes into physical fitness, eating well, dealing with your emotions, and also we could say paranormal aspects and soul and spirit aspects with that as well. And everyone's got their different sort of entry into self-mastery once they, or if they feel drawn to that. So yeah, I hope that explains a little bit about it anyway, Mika.
Thank you. As we go through self-inquiry, we've got to see different aspects to ourselves, but we can realize our true desires and direction through our inner guidance as well. I think it can also be said to be a process of encounter our individual purpose on earth and the soul mission, but what do you think?
My perspective is that self-inquiry includes everything that you just mentioned. That soul path, direction, answers, all these things can be found in that space, in the heart or in the zone that I speak about when you are in that state of no mind, which is God's mind. It's almost like daydreaming. And there you can sit and meditate on a direction to take, an action to take, on seeking guidance and answers. And that's where, yes, spirit guides, or they could be extraterrestrials or ascended masters or angels and what have you, and God's source creator, the communing with them can be done through that space in self-inquiry. You really want to tap into your own space, but they can come through and assist or give you other perspectives. And that's where I say you don't do what your guides tell you. They will give some feedback or a broader perspective along with God's source creator. You want to follow your bliss, which is what the source wants you to do, is follow your bliss. And so it doesn't mean everything's always going to be happy, but you wouldn't know happiness unless you knew sadness. You wouldn't know strength unless you knew weaknesses, which in the weak times you find the strength to carry on. And so in the self-inquiry, it includes everything else that you mentioned. And I think people have their own way to approach that and their own come from. Just like with trauma, it affects everyone differently. Everyone's got their own upbringing and an educational sort of lens that they experience the world through, including with epigenetics, which can be our ancestors' traits, including their trauma. And so through self-inquiry, of just sitting and being in that space and observing thoughts, ideas, from a perspective of not even wanting to achieve an answer and not setting, we could say, a framework of your own expectations, but just being, those answers and resolutions can present themselves. So I hope that answered your question, Mika.
Thank you. Today as well, thank you for your great messages. It was a lot of fun to share this time with you, and it brought me also a lot of awareness and learning. I feel this is part of my self-mastery process as well, and I am very grateful.
My pleasure, Mika, and sayonara. Thank you very much. Many blessings.
Thank you. So by putting the information we have acquired into practice, we can deepen our learning more and realize new things for the first time. I hope that you can use the many messages that Peter shared in your life to make it more enjoyable and enriching, and that it will bring you happiness. Sending love and gratitude to Peter and all of you. Thank you very much.